Hello, welcome back to the Project Hercules Diaries. We're just starting the task now of disassembling everything to start working and fitting on the remaining 7 items, because we've ticked 4 off the list of things that we need to do before we can actually start the engine. And as we're breaking it down, we're taking the head off. We've just been chatting to Bob because somebody asked the question, what are these grooves for in the top? And my response initially was, well, I don't know, must be something to do with perhaps oil relief or something like that. And of course, what they're for, now that we've got the head off, is it should be fairly obvious as I explain it, as it was to me when I asked Bob. So the cylinder head has rings in, and the rings in the cylinder head are always inside the sleeve. So it's unlikely, but it is possible that some oil eventually will get past these cylinder head rings and work its way into the gap, just a tiny gap between the side of the cylinder head, between the cylinder wall and the sleeve. And that gap there has got no escape. So as the sleeve comes up, it will be effectively trying to compress the oil into that tiny void, and that will cause a hydraulic lock, and that hydraulic lock is never good for any engine. So if the rings on the cylinder head started to let oil come past them, and the oil did get into that tiny space there, only the thickness of the sleeve, what would happen is that as the sleeve is compressing the oil up towards the top, the oil can then run down that groove there between the sleeve and the cylinder wall. The oil runs down the groove, and as you note, the bottom of the groove is exposed to the port. So the port on the sleeve, the oil can run into the port and then into the combustion chamber and exit as burnt oil. Now there are 4 ports on the sleeve, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there are 4 grooves. The sleeve that is a double port, this one has its own groove there, and the other 3 grooves line up with the other ports. So if you look at any particular port, as the engine turns, it will have a groove next to it that does become uncovered at some point in the cycle. There's the double port, and its groove comes at that point there. So every port has its own groove. And there we go. So that is what the purpose of those grooves, and that answers that question. So I can't remember who asked the question, apologies, but whoever did ask, there's the answer, and thanks for making me think about it. These people thought of everything at Bristol, didn't they? Some of the cylinders, being a radial engine, will be on the bottom of the radial, so they are completely upside down, and I suppose this is slightly more important for the upside down cylinders, because when the engine stands, oil would tend to run downward under the force of gravity, and that those bottom cylinders are more likely to have that issue with a potential hydraulic lock. Out of interest, this is cylinder number 11, and number 11 on the Hercules engine is on the rear row at around about 9:30 as a clock position, or 289 degrees. So that's where this one comes from, and at some point I'll see if I can trace some more of these numbers and find out. Wouldn't it be nice to know which aircraft this was actually in, or if it was ever fitted to an aircraft? But that's something for another time. So we're just about to start stripping down the rest of the engine to start finishing those bits, and I'm hoping to fetch the frame around the middle of October when the kids are off school. Anyway, I'll post all the details about that shortly. As usual, thank you for watching. More will follow.